Okay, well, my birthday is the 22nd, so I'm either Onyx or Carnelian. Depends on, I feel like different
okay.
zodiacs. Sometimes
That's true.
The 22nd is. So yeah, so Virginia, her PhD is about 19th century like archaeology and geology. So she has a lot of fossils because people are into collecting fossils there. So when you get a lot of money.
Hey, you. What's going on, y'all? Basically, it's a block drop for y'all. You already know what it is. Some interesting articles. I don't know what we're gonna see, but we're gonna get into it. Let's go. Hey, welcome back to the Leon Block, everyone. It's Chantel, as usual, back with some block drops. So the Rittenhouse trial, right? That went down today. So let's get into that really quick. So the jurors for the Kyle Rittenhouse trial are swiftly selected. I'm reading this as we go along here, so I might be just as shocked to hear certain things as y'all will, okay? The judge pushed back against comments from potential jurors who said they had read and talked too much about the shootings that took place during unrest in Kenosha County, Wisconsin. So the jury was seated in the homicide trial on Monday in an unusually swift process that was completed with a flood of questioning on a single day. Mr. Rittenhouse, who is 18, faces 6 criminal counts, including first-degree intentional homicide and the shooting deaths of 2 men and the wounding of another in the aftermath of protests over a police shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin in August of last year. Opening statements are expected on Tuesday morning. This article is from about an hour ago, y'all. Just so you know, it's pretty up to date. A large number of prospective jurors, about 150 people, were summoned on Monday to the Kenosha County Courthouse downtown, a reflection of the outsized attention the trial has attracted in a city that was torn by civil unrest and gun violence last year. Dozens of people were dismissed throughout the day and into the early evening until the number of jurors was winnowed down to 20, a panel made up of 11 women and 9 men. 20 jurors will hear the case, and that number will be cut to 12 to reach a verdict. Kenosha County is 75% white, and the jury was overwhelmingly white. I am not surprised to hear that, y'all. To be honest, what were we expecting? Seriously, I mean, come on. But Judge Bruce Schroeder of Kenosha County Circuit Court determined to select a jury rapidly, questioned potential jurors closely about their biases and their connections to the expected witnesses in the trial. When he asked if there was anyone in the pool of jurors who had not heard of the Rittenhouse case, not a single person raised a hand. Judge Schroeder, known for his loquacious and occasionally cranky courtroom manner, talked to the jury pool about their responsibility as jurors, offering commentary on judicial bias and the history of democracy and the fall of Rome. He pushed back against comments from potential jurors who said that they had read and talked too much about the trial, which has been an all-consuming topic of conversation in Kenosha for weeks. When one man began explaining that his support for the Second Amendment was so fervent that he did not believe he could serve as an impartial juror, Judge Schroeder stopped him. I want this case to reflect the greatness of Kenosha and the fairness of Kenosha, and I don't want it to get sidetracked into other issues. I don't care about your opinions on the Second Amendment. So they go into breaking down the demographics of Kenosha, which looks like it's pretty nearly split politically. Many people in the juror pool said that they not only had they followed the news in the Rittenhouse case, but they had formed such deeply held views on it that they were not comfortable serving on the jury. I just can't see how I can get it off my head, one man told the judge of his opinions before he was dismissed. My opinion is set stone in this, said another man. One woman said her husband had such strong feelings about the Rittenhouse case that serving on a jury whose decision went against his view meant, she said in a quavering voice, that she would not want to go home. A prosecutor asked the potential jurors if they had given money to Rittenhouse's defense fund, if they or family members had participated in the demonstrations in August, and if they agreed that human life was more valuable than property. As they answered questions, prospective jurors spoke of the nights of protest and violence in August last year and the precautions they had taken as dozens of businesses were damaged and burned. Some said that family members, friends, and fellow churchgoers had businesses and property that were damaged during the riots, had fled the city of Kenosha out of fear, or had moved their vehicles to the backside of the house so that they could not be targets for vandals. One woman said that her family had a blue light in front of its house as a symbol of support for the police department, but removed it as violence broke out. Oh my goodness. One woman said that Corey such and such, a lawyer for Mr. Rittenhouse, questions prospective jurors about their positions on guns and gun ownership, if they had connections to the civil unrest in Kenosha, and whether they had emotional responses to it. How many people are angry about what happened, he said, clarifying that he was referring to the whole riots thing. Judge Schroeder interrupted him. No, we're not here for the riot. Cool. A man who said he lived near where the unrest occurred responded, just listening to it, I'm getting really anxious. Some prospective jurors voiced fears of serving on the jury and eventually disappointing or enraging the public with the verdict. Seeing how sketched out a lot of people are and how people have such deeply biased views in the area about this case, I don't understand how this Judge Schroeder came to such a swift choosing of the jury. I mean, it doesn't really disclose that part in the article. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the comments as well. Again, if you're watching from YouTube, it'll be in the comments. You can check it out on YouTube, and it'll be at the end. You can check it out as well. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Would really appreciate it. So the next story we see here is Minneapolis voters to decide on scrapping police department 18 months after George Floyd's murder. That is definitely something that you're going to want to read. I'm not reading it for you right now. However, I do think it's important. Where are we where is this? Yes. So some other headlines I wanted to get into, because I do mention Global North and Global South a lot. And what, for those who don't understand, Global North is basically countries that are, what do they call them, Western nations. The more appropriate term, I guess they're saying now, is freaking Global North and Global South. And you know what? I think that is a little, I dig it. I fuck with it. The reason that I bring up Global North and Global South is because, you know, we've been talking a lot about climate change, for real, and there's a lot going on that we're distracted from that's not really talked about on mainstream. I'm sure that they've like touched on it, but through the lens of Greta Thunberg, because she's so that's who they want to put as the poster child. But honestly, it's so much more than that. World leaders, activists, all descend on Glasgow for COP22 as the future of humanity hangs in the balance. World leaders and activists have arrived in Glasgow, Scotland for COP22, a critical United Nations summit aimed at averting the most catastrophic events of the climate crisis. A recent UN emissions gap report showed that current contributions and commitments by nations to reduce emissions aren't nearly enough to avert a planetary disaster. Well, of course it's not. What the fuck do you expect? And you know, I had a meme. I don't know if I put it in the past 2 episodes of memes, quotes, and thoughts, but I have it somewhere, talking about the fact that, like, you know, when COVID happened, initially, basically it's not us that's contributing to the most to the issue of climate change. Clearly, it's not us as individual people that's doing the most damage. It's these fucking corporations, man. So there's a serious risk that Glasgow will not deliver. Several recent climate announcements might leave the impression of a rosier picture. Unfortunately, this is an illusion. The current nationally determined contributions, formal commitments by governments, still condemn the world to a calamitous 2.7 degree increase. There are serious questions of credibility. We see dangerous levels of mistrust among the big powers, among members of the G20, and between developed and developing countries. Some 30,000 people are expected to take part in the 2-week summit, which was postponed for a year by the pandemic. Climate activists have been gathering in Glasgow to push world leaders to take more drastic action, like ending government subsidies for fossil fuels and divesting from coal, oil, and gas. The thing is that they're saying that this year was the whitest year on record, as the pandemic and restrictions due to the pandemic have made it tougher for poorer countries to show up to COP22 and therefore have their voices be heard. And with that being said, that leads to a lot of issues with these national corporations that come into these poor countries. The exploitation is going to accelerate, you would think, right? Texas homeowner who killed unarmed driver will use stand your ground law as defense. Caught my attention. In Texas, a San Antonio area homeowner will use the state's stand your ground laws to defend himself against a murder charge after he shot and killed a motorist who pulled into his driveway, apparently because the driver was lost. 65-year-old Terry Turner, who is white, fatally shot unarmed 31-year-old Adil Dioui, who was of Moroccan origin, though the driver's side window of his car, as he was turning around in Turner's driveway. Turner said in an affidavit he believed the guy was armed and that he fired his handgun in self-defense. You gotta be fucking kidding me. The victim's family and attorneys say it took nearly 2 weeks of calls to the Texas Rangers and the state's Department of Justice before police finally arrested Terry Turner. You have got to be kidding me. No, I'm not. This is America. Listen to this. Philly bans cops from stopping drivers for low-level traffic violations. Philly has become the first major U.S. city to ban police from stopping cars for low-level traffic violations in an effort to reduce dangerous interactions between racist police officers and motorists of color. Police data from 2018 to 2019 showed black drivers represent 72% of the traffic stops in Philly, even though black residents only make up 42% of the city's population. A recent study by the New York Times found police officers across the U.S. have killed over 400 drivers or passengers who were not armed with a deadly weapon in the past 5 years. Only 5 of those officers have been convicted of crimes. I did see something else on information about Philly police. I gotta find it. I know I have it somewhere. Labor Board ruling boosts union drive of Buffalo, New York Starbucks workers. Supreme Court hears arguments on Texas's near total ban on abortion. The Supreme Court is hearing arguments today on Texas's new law outlawing most abortions. The majority conservative court is considering challenges from abortion providers in the Biden administration on the nation's strictest anti-choice law, which deputizes private citizens to enforce the ban and violates the constitutional right to an abortion enshrined in Roe v. Wade, as we all know. Hi, man. Chipotle workers stop showing up as online orders overwhelm and overwork them. Definitely a good read.
Can I curse?
Yes.
So
Curse all you want.
You know, I may seem like a nice guy, but I'm actually a dick, right? Because like, and we're probably maybe mutually explaining each other because I'm like that too. And so I need you. I did this to you over brunch where I had an idea. I probably sounded like I was half baked on something. I wasn't, but like I need a person to sort of, because things are in my head and I like start talking about it. And then when it comes out, I'm like, oh yeah, including, well, I don't want to say that, but anyway, so, you know, it may seem nice, but I'm really an exploitive dick. Like I used you.
No, I do the same thing. It's no, we're on the same page.
So if we're mutually exploiting each other, is that a form of mutual aid, mutual exploitation?
I would agree. I would completely, yes, we're in agreement on that.
Some anarchist somewhere, their head is exploding. Rebecca, right? You know who you are if you hear this. We hope you'll still be friends.
You know what? That's what I've come to like not even disclose with people, but also be very open about.
That's right.
Because they're like, are you going to interview me? And I'm like, I did.
Well, I actually want to get 100 with you in a second about that because I have to think a little bit about how to frame this because there is a little bit of privacy. Do you know if there are people following? Do you encourage people to make questions or comments when it's live?
I do. Rarely people do. Unless they're like, I don't know who watches from YouTube. I
Yeah.
have a lot of new viewers from
Mm.
YouTube. I don't know who
It's
they
those
are.
algorithms.
Yep.
That's a whole other thing. So
Mhm.
so back to my story, because I'm curious your perspective,
Mhm.
both as a friend and also, you know, coming from being a person of color
Mhm.
and queer. I'd say that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. I've talked about deep,
Well, I was
dark
like-
secrets on
I was
here.
like, oh shit, I just didn't out somebody.
Oh no. you're good.
So I have a friend of the family, right, who's in college, and so let's say that this is Larry. So Larry had a really close friendship with Rosa, let's say, and yeah, like, you know, I don't know what the term is for the kids, you know, dating, but not partners,
Right.
whatever.
Mhm.
So Larry's very creative and had developed some ideas, you know, on their college campus to like kind of combine like art and poetry and like community.
Mhm.
And so we were talking a little about salons, a little bit like that idea of like the salon culture, right, of people coming together. And so it was like very intentional, and was going to do it in Larry's dorm room. And so Rosa, like, and these were some ideas that Larry had for a long time before he knew Rosa. So then
Mhm.
Rosa like was, you know, part of those conversations. And then recently they had a big conflict because Rosa was like, and Rosa's you know, part Korean American, like half Korean or whatever. She's one parent Korean, one parent white.
Okay.
And so she was like, hey, like, I actually think Larry, who's, you know, white, you know, on the binary, you know, on the non-binary continuum, but like
Okay.
can pass as white, and like, you know, would never say that he's not. So Rosa said, like, I feel like you're using your privilege and you're exploiting me, because like we talked about the salon idea a lot, and you know, you appropriated, you sort of took my ideas and you're using it for yourself, and you didn't give me enough credit. And well, kind of it ended the relationship, right? Where was I going with this? And so like, and then Larry was also like, I don't even know if I can do this now. Like, it was on a college campus, so it was like a close community. Like, now, you know, Rosa could go around and say like if I continue with this project, I'm just making this up, the name, but let's say it was like, you know, the community cafe. If I go forward with this community cafe, like, you know, Rosa could go and say like, I stole her idea, and like, so I'm getting at this like thing, like, and Larry's a family friend, so I'm not unbiased, but like, for sure, Rosa has a point, which was, you know, she did contribute through
Mhm.
conversation.
Mhm.
There wasn't like an agreement. There wasn't like there was money on the table where everybody like they had invested.
No
So
one had a disclosure of a conversation about intellectual property.
they didn't, but like, you know, like you and I, right? Like, we didn't have that.
Mhm.
So yeah, like, there is a thing about intellectual property, and for sure there's a lot of, especially, you know, with white people and say white society,
Right.
that exploits all kinds of people,
Mhm.
including lots and lots of Black culture and other people
Mhm.
of color. So I you know, like, it'd be easy to be like, oh well, Rose is a bad person and Larry was unfairly targeted, or to turn it around. Some people would be like, who's this guy Larry? You know, because I know the situation. I know that it's not 100% clear that like there was an idea that they jointly had, and then Larry took it and said it was his own. So there was a theme to this, right? This thing about I was joking about mutual exploitation, but like in this situation, like, do you think it feels a little weird to be like, okay, like for you and me right now, be like, okay, like, I don't want to say this on your podcast because it's my idea. Like, until we write down on a piece of paper that this next thing I'm going to talk about, we're going to split the revenue. That would feel a little.
Yeah.
But is that what you're suggesting, that we